Welcome to Building Better Businesses, an ABA podcast. Learn firsthand from business owners who built successful ABA businesses. Utilize proven techniques and strategies to help your practice thrive. This is Building Better Businesses, an ABA podcast with Jonathan Mueller.
And Jacoby is a professional keynote speaker, author, and entrepreneur on a mission to cultivate creativity at work. As a founder of Spring Street, she partners with leading companies to build innovative, connective, and inclusive cultures. She's an entrepreneur herself, serving as general manager and early employee at Axiom, who provides tech enablement for legal services. And she helped grow them $250 million business over 12 years. Welcome to the pod, Anne.
It's great to be here, Jonathan. Thank you for inviting me. This is great.
Hey, I'm psyched for our conversation. And let's start. I'm going to read your tagline because I love it. It's amazing. And your tagline is this: life is too short for bad culture. Create the culture you crave. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, I think it boils down to life is short, right? And we spend a lot of our waking hours at work, in the workplace, around people doing work. And if we're not feeling inspired and supported and safe to bring our best ideas, I just think get out of there. There's too many great opportunities waiting for you outside of that place if you're not feeling like you're thriving.
Amen to that. What's interesting about your background, Ed, is that you were a business person first. You weren't a business person first. You have a creative arts background that you brought to the business world, and that's super unique and something I really appreciate. And that included a powerful aha moment for you. So describe your aha moment and how that shaped your approach to organizational culture.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have an unconventional background. I was a professional singer, actor, dancer. Really thought that I would make my career at it, right? And spend my life doing that, performing, storytelling. And I was in New York City wearing a lot of different hats. I was waiting tables and babysitting and working, everywhere, just juggling it all, right? Auditioning. And a headhunter actually discovered me when I was waiting tables. I kind of struck up this conversation and she said, you know what? I'm going to find you a better job. You got to get out of here. You should be doing something else. And I just said yes. I think that's one powerful, tidbit is just being open to opportunities as they come up. I said, yes, sure. Find me a better job. And the place that I interviewed for was Axiom. And I joined this startup, which kind of shows how little I knew about business. I thought that would be stable, and many startups are not. But I stayed there, as you said, for over 12 years and grew this company from 7 people to thousands around the globe. And that experience really led to this aha moment that you mentioned. It was that creativity, all of the stuff that I had been working on, the discipline of creativity, all of that was put to use in the business world. And although I didn't come from a business background, that creative thinking and problem solving and adapting was immediately applicable in this new world of growing a business.
Boom. I love it. That idea of saying yes, like that's the heart of an entrepreneur's story, right? You have to, as an entrepreneur, say yes and like take those chances. It's kind of like my life motto of try anything twice, which sometimes works out great. And then other times maybe that was good the first time, but say yes.
It doesn't always work out, but you got to say yes.
Right. And we hear about like brands and business brands. But frankly, I think, there's a poor understanding of like what a brand really means across like autism service providers. And 2, for a fact, I can say, because I'm guilty of this, like organizations are not fully harnessing the power of their brand. I'm curious, how would you define brand and why is that important?
Yeah, it's a big question and it comes to mind all the time with the clients that I work with. I view brand as the way your organization makes people feel. And it's really connecting to emotion. It's not the logo. It's not the elevator pitch. I mean, those things are nice and you do have to work on them, but it's really in the aggregate, how are you leaving people feeling about the experience of working with you? Even the idea of coming to work for you, that's really the brand. And why I think it's so important is people have a lot of choices today. And consumers in particular, whether you're B2B or B2C, people can research on their own at the click of a button and find out on Glassdoor, what is it like to work there? What is it like to be a consumer of your services? People can engage with your brand before you even have a chance to connect. And so brand is really important to ensure that you're focusing on the right things, that you're being authentic, that you're really being considerate of what you can be the best at, not just what you hope to be, but taking a hard look in the mirror of who are we? What can we be the best in the world at? And how do we differentiate ourselves authentically? That's really how I view the world of brand.
That's exquisite. Like a brand is how it makes you feel. And important, as you point out, to both candidates, right? People who, future employees, and to consumers. And what's one thing you'd encourage every small business owner to start doing right now when it comes to their brand? And one thing you would encourage them to stop doing when it comes to their business brand?
Yeah, well, I think in terms of start to think about, again, what can you excel at? Where are you different? Think about what are the stories that are representative of who you are as a brand, as an organizational culture, and get real with yourself. Again, it's not about, oh gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we were, because that will come across as inauthentic. But really thinking about, how do we show up for each other? How is that a different experience? And how do we create that environment that is both our culture and our brand, and that it's very clear to everyone, whether they're coming to work for us or work with us, that that's the feeling that they're going to be left with. I think that's a good thing to start with. And then in terms of stopping, I think stopping trying to be like everyone else, stopping to just copy and mimic what you see, company X over there doing, or organization X does really well. That won't be authentic at the end of the day. You kind of have to own your own stuff, good and bad, and just be real.
You've mentioned authentic a couple times now. Tell me, what does authentic mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's about being real. And that, I take a page out of your book, Jonathan. Look, we're imperfect human beings, and sharing that vulnerability, sharing what we're learning, sharing our stumbles and our challenges is a human way to lead. And I think that's really what folks are looking for these days, are real human beings, people who can be authentic, real, human, fallible. We're not expected to be perfect. And I think today people are looking for leaders in particular who can own up to those missteps and invite everyone to continuously learn and grow. And that's what people are hoping for in their work experience.
Well, speaking of leaders and growing, one of the blog posts you did has this beautiful imagery, because you write about zebracorns, zebra and unicorn, which what the heck is a zebracorn, and how does this apply to leaders?
Yeah, I think if you can conjure up that image for a moment of the striped animal with the horn, it's a little bit magical, it's a little bit unexpected, and I think the reason that I love that image so much is we're all different, and we all at some point feel like an outsider, and that we don't necessarily fit in with the tribe in which we're working or living, or there's something different about us. And I think that's okay. I think that's actually a beautiful thing. And inviting in those differences, respecting them, celebrating them, is the kind of work experience that I want to be a part of, that many of my clients want to build. So I love that image of the zebracorn as a symbol of just owning up to our differences and celebrating them, instead of trying to just fit in and be something that we're not.
So, Anne, this is a powerful idea of like inviting in and celebrating differences, and being authentic and being real. And I know one question a lot of small business owners have is like, well, how do I make sure I don't cross the line then right into like professional, personal? What advice would you have about being authentic, and inviting that feedback, but without compromising that importance of professionalism?
Yeah, I think people have different points of view in terms of how much they want to share their full selves at work. And you got to respect that. You got to respect people's individual boundaries. But I think it's about creating those spaces for people to be respectful, but also bring themselves. And that might mean an opt-in opportunity where you have different groups or different differences that people can come together and feel heard, to share their experiences of differences, but it's not a requirement. So I think it is a delicate dance, especially as a leader, to create those spaces without forcing everyone to participate. But I think, hopefully there's a way to find that harmony within your organization, and people can choose their own direction, choose what feels right for them.
Nice. Well, you also write about this idea of learn it all cultures. And really you point out, I think the point I love about this is that learning in organizations should not feel like a luxury. What can leaders do to create that learn it all culture?
Yeah, and learn it all culture is kind of borrowed from Satya Nadella at Microsoft, who came in to transform the culture and then ultimately the business with a growth mindset. And so rather than have a know-it-all culture, which is all about just your expertise and you're hired for things that you did, having a learn-it-all culture is beautiful because you're really you're shifting the lens a bit. You're looking for people who are aligned to your values, who have the appetite to learn and grow, who have the skills or attributes that are consistent with where you're driving your company, and then trust that they'll gain the experiences, right? And especially in a market that is so difficult to find talent, you have to have that mindset of people are going to grow with the organization. I think learning is the new compensation, that people would rather learn and grow and stretch rather than have a bump in their salary in many cases. There's a lot of research that backs that. So as an organizational leader, thinking through, okay, what experiences are we offering our community so that they can learn, that they can stretch, step into things that are outside of their comfort zone. That's what people want today, I believe.
Learning is the new compensation. That's perfect. So small business owners, autism service providers, this is like part and parcel of growing an organization, right? You can't, when you're going from zero or very small to something bigger, you can't forecast everything that's going to happen. You can't solve all of that. And it's why I think it can be hard to be a perfectionist as a small business owner. But what is critical is, are you learning? And are you creating a culture around you where your organization extends beyond you because you've imparted on them the importance of learning and constantly improving? I think that's awesome, man.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, as a small business owner, you may not be the highest bidder. You may not be able to pay them as much as they could earn somewhere else. But if you can differentiate around the opportunity and about the learning experiences that they're going to have, that's incredibly motivating and inspiring to a big group of talented people. So I think if you can tap into that, it can be a really powerful way of attracting talent and retaining them through that growth.
Well, tell me about a time that you felt in over your head, whether in an organization or as an entrepreneur yourself with Axiom or anywhere. Tell me about that time and what did you do?
Oh gosh, when do I not feel in over my head? But the truth is, Jonathan, it's by design, it's by choice, that I'm one of those people who, if I feel too comfortable, it's time to make a move. And so I'm constantly kind of putting myself in situations where I feel a little bit out of my depth, out of my comfort zone. Obviously, if I feel really overwhelmed, which is natural for any entrepreneur, I think, to feel, having a strong network of advisors to text or pick up the phone and call and get that sound advice or just be heard, right? A lot of this is just about building connection. It can feel really lonely as an entrepreneur and very isolating. So I think that network is critical. But I will share, a story comes to mind. When I was going to go into high school, I was going to be a ninth grader, and I signed up for French 1. So beginning French. I'd never taken any French. And it was a beginning French class. The expectation was, you don't know French. But I am wired in such a way that I spent the entire summer going to the library, getting out French tapes, right? There were probably tapes at the time, reading French words, right? Vocabulary, just so I could feel comfortable in that new environment. And so for me, that preparation and preparing myself and researching is a really helpful strategy to get comfortable when I know I'm going to be in an uncomfortable situation. So that's just my strategy. But un bonk, my family still laughs that that's our little code word, that I need to feel prepared. Un bonk.
Bug. Oh my gosh, what an overachiever. So you're the person that made me look so bad in my French 1 class back in 7th grade. Now I know, Anne. My life would be so different.
So sorry.
No, I love that idea. Like, you understand yourself, right? And what you need to be successful is to feel prepared. And that's part of that entrepreneurial journey, is creating an exquisite and keen sense of self-awareness. That's powerful. Well, full disclosure, at Ascend Behavior Partners, where I'm a co-founder and co-CEO, you helped us earlier this year in the spring, and you were just critical in helping us develop a new set of values, and launch a leadership academy, which was so fun. Especially because, like, the first set of values with my 2 co-founders was like, I don't know, it was like 30 days in. We're like, oh, we got to pick something because we have a training for our new team. And so 20 minutes. Anyway, point was, it was time to like really create values, or evolve our values to make sure they reflected our organization. Why do you think it's important for organizations periodically to revisit their values, and how would you recommend they approach it?
Yeah. First of all, Jonathan, it was so wonderful to work with you and work with your team on that engagement. It's stuff that's really near and dear to my heart, because I think when I think about organizational culture, that heartbeat of the organization, ideally you want it to be anchored around your core values. So to me, that's an ideal place to start, not just to have pretty words on a page or on a coffee mug. We talk about that. That's not what it is. It's really about, again, authenticity, reflecting who you really are, your real self, not just what you would like to be. And then generating those stories of behaviors that really reflect who you want to be, how you want to show up for each other. And so I think that exercise in examining and kind of mining for stories, where have we seen this in action? Where have we rewarded it and celebrated? And on the flip side, what is not tolerated here? Where do we draw the line and say, nope, if this behavior shows up, it's a no-go. It's inconsistent with our values. And so I think exploring that with my clients and with you folks around, hey, what does this look like in practice? How do we make sure that everyone is aware of these stories? That's a really powerful process to get to the heart of the core values and ultimately the culture of the company.
And one thing I really appreciated about what you did was you made it an inclusive exercise. This was not like me and you and, or a small handful of people, or just our people team, right, doing this. There's an invitation across the organization, and to both respond to feedback of like a survey that you sent out, and then the way you pulled that together and engaged. I think, gosh, there's probably about 12 people I remember on that in that discussion from all walks of life in our organization. That was really powerful. And to your point around that helps to create some of the stories, bring those to life, and to make it feel like this is a broader process.
Absolutely. Yeah. Culture is created by everyone, not just the leadership team. So,
amen. Well, what's the most important advice, Anne, that you would share with a business owner or aspiring business owner, or, a clinician in our field who's thinking about starting their own practice?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't put myself out as an expert in your industry, but I think for any entrepreneur, anyone who's starting to launch a business, having an open heart, being open-hearted to yourself and your own creative process, but then also being open-hearted to your employees, your customers, your investors, anyone who's interacting with you along the way. Being a really effective listener is critical. I can't tell you how many times that process of listening really moved me in a different direction, because all of a sudden you're getting feedback that, whoa, that my hypothesis is not lining up with what the actual needs are. And so time for me to pivot, time to adapt, and then not being afraid of adapting, not fearing, well, gosh, I had this idea that this is how we were going to go to market, or this is going to be our approach. But now with this feedback, I'm hearing it needs to be something else. So you got to have that willingness to be agile and adapt, because as we know in business and in life, change is really the only constant. So
Yeah.
that adaptability is key.
Being a good listener. It's a cliche, but it's so true. We're given 2 ears and one mouth for a reason, right? We should listen twice as much as we should talk. Actually, there's another one I just heard. Isn't silent an anagram for listen? I don't know, is that the right use of anagram?
Ooh.
I think I just heard that. Someone can fact check me.
I love it.
So true. Actively listen as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as anyone in life. That's key to, I think, key to success. And tell me about what are you as your best self, and what does Anne as her worst self look like?
All right, I'm going to air all my dirty laundry here. Best self, I hope that it's feeling creative, being creative, bringing that out in others, being collaborative, being that good listener that you talked about. And I think at my worst, it's being critical, self-critical. Not having patience with myself, with the process. Yeah, that perfectionism, right? Un bonk.
Yeah.
So,
I really thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing that. I'd be curious, as you worked at a place like Axiom, right, where you were, I think you mentioned 7 employees, and then you were on that 12-year journey to becoming thousands of employees. Like, how did your mindset and creativity mindset evolve and change from small to big organization?
Yeah. I keep going back to the adaptability. They're so closely linked with creativity and always saying yes to the next challenge. So across that 12-year span of time, I wore a lot of different hats, right? It was recruiting. I was, setting up client meetings, and I was going to the client meetings, being the account manager, then building teams and leading teams and being the engagement manager. Just wore tons of different hats, sales strategy and operations, just lots of different opportunities to make an impact. So I think the through line with all of that is, where can I be of value? Where does the organization need my energy, my creative ideas? What's the highest and best use of my time right now? And that's going to change as the business grows and evolves, especially if you're, I joined early career and then stayed there for over a decade. So it was with a lot of change during that time. But just saying yes and being open to what's next, what's needed.
Being open to what's needed. And that idea of like highest and best use of your leadership, or in our field, your license, right? That as a leader, we have to constantly evolve how we answer that question. And if we don't, then like we're going to find ourselves like keep coming back to stuff that, sure, we can probably do best, and that's why we're a leader, but that's not how you create scale and create leverage of your time and impart things throughout the organization. I think that's really, really important. For business owners to know.
And just to build on that, Jonathan, especially for those stepping into leadership roles, being okay with 80%. And that's really hard if you're used to, as you say, being the expert, doing it all yourself. Being able to let go and empower others to do that to 80%. Maybe it won't get to 95, 100% yet without some coaching, but just being okay to be okay, letting go. It's so hard as an entrepreneur, but I think a really critical lesson to learn early to get that leverage.
That's the curse of competence, right? For leaders and for entrepreneurs. I think there's a resource, or was it Dwight Eisenhower that talked about this concept of a 2x2 matrix of the urgent and important, right? And make sure that as a leader, you're always in that like, upper right quadrant of what is most important. And if it's, urgent but not important, you delegate it. If it's not important and not urgent, don't do it at all, right? And then if it's, so anyway, point is like that, you mentioned earlier, the importance of having self-awareness and constantly evolving how you're looking at yourself as a leader so that you're constantly growing. That feels critical.
Yeah. I love the Eisenhower matrix. Try to use it all the time.
Yeah. Why did you start Spring Street?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I'd always been really passionate about this sense of culture building and the importance of it, um, the importance of activating our creativity at work. And I reached a point in my career where I thought, you know what, it's time to help not just my organization, but lots of different organizations with this. I crave that scale. And so by launching Spring Street, just gave that opportunity to touch a lot of different organizations, early stage ones, big Fortune 50 companies as well, just on a lot of different cultural needs. And it's felt really rewarding to have that kind of impact.
Right on. What are some of your favorite projects and engagements that you get to do at Spring Street?
You mean besides you, working with you?
Yeah.
Softball question there.
Right.
There have been so many. I'm currently working with a couple of clients on some transformation and change initiatives that are going to take a lot of time, and where the culture isn't where they'd like it to be. And that effort of inspiring change at the grassroots level and putting a system in place where people really are inspired to speak up, to support each other, to be the ally in the room, to intervene when they notice something isn't right, feels really powerful to me. So that's been a big undertaking for this organization, and I'm a small part of it, but it's felt really meaningful.
Nice. And it's your own way of really nicely paying it forward. That's cool, Anne. All right. So, I want you to throw one question at me. Any question, it doesn't matter. And I have to answer on the spot.
Okay. How, where, and when do you feel that you're at your creative best?
Talking to people like you. I'll be honest, one of the things that gets me up in the morning. So I am an extrovert on the Myers-Briggs, or however you define it. I am an extreme extrovert, and I get my energy talking to others and getting ideas from others and listening. And I've had to grow that skill over time. But one of the, I don't know if you ever saw Star Trek, but there was this group of beings called the Borg, and they were sort of cyborg, sort of humans. But what do? They go around the universe and they would absorb other cultures, which actually sounds really bad. So this is an inelegant analogy, but I like to think that I can go and just by listening and asking questions, I learn all kinds of things. And then, there's that helps give me the fuel to try those things. And some of those things are going to work out and other things won't. But when I can engage and learn from others, that's so fun. And I'll be honest, over the course of my career, there have been 25-year career. There are times that I can see that I've been able to do that, but it's really only over the last few years that I've gotten that level of, and I won't say I'm self-aware, right? I've got a long way to go, but that I've gotten that level of just knowing what gets me out of bed in the morning and what I want to do and what fills my bucket. And so I'm I don't know, maybe I'm just old and dumb at this point and lazy, but that's what I want to do in my life. And that's what I choose to do. So I will do it.
I love it. And I love that you're so open to hearing lots of different points of view. And I think that's the hallmark of a really exceptional leader, but just also someone who is self-aware, to know that, hey, we don't have all the answers. And so we have to seek out different perspectives proactively, right? And kind of put ourselves out there, because that's the only way that we can grow and evolve and change. Awesome.
Awesome. Right on. Great question, Anne. All right, before we dive into our hot take, where can our audience find you on social media?
Yeah, you can check me out. Please link in on LinkedIn. You can find me at annejacoby.com or springstreetco.com. Sign up for my newsletter, or I'm on Instagram at annejacoby.author. So any of those spots.
Awesome. And Anne does amazing work. So I encourage you to reach out. If you have, I know she's open to answering questions or anything else under the sun. All right, Anne, are you ready for our hot take?
Ready as ever.
Okay. First question. You're on your deathbed. What's the one thing you want to be remembered for?
That I've helped inspire creativity.
Nice. What's your most important self-care practice?
I am obsessed with journaling, just a little bit, micro journaling every day, just setting my intentions and my reasons to be grateful.
Lots of research around practicing gratitude leading toward a more fulfilled and happier life. Amen.
Yes.
And if you could cancel all your meetings, skip all your responsibilities for a day, how would you spend that day?
Well, I'd love it to be filled with yoga, walks at the beach, walks in the trees, and big family meal for sure. Time with family.
Nice. Best Madonna song ever.
Madonna. It's got to be Holiday.
Celebrate. Was that the next line?
That's right.
I'm a huge Madonna fan. My wife and I just tried to have this conversation around like who's a better singer and dancer, Madonna or Beyonce. We could not come to a conclusion. Do you have any feedback or thoughts?
Wow. I mean, apples and oranges, if you ask me.
Totally fair. Audience, if you have a strong perspective on that, please let us know because I haven't been able to answer it. And if you could give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
It's got to be patient and just keep learning.
Nice. And finally, you can only wear one style of footwear for the rest of your life. What would it be?
Well, I just bought a pair of sneakers that have sparkles on them because I was tired of my daughter always getting the sparkly shoes. So I bought some for myself. So I think those are fabulous because you can dress them up or down. So I'll go with the sparkly sneakers.
Man, comfort and fashion and sparkles
Right?
all in one. You can't go wrong.
Totally.
Oh my gosh. And this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and taking time.
Oh, Jonathan, it was really my pleasure. And thank you to your listeners for being part of this.
Right on. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Building Better Businesses in ABA podcast. Stay tuned for our next exciting episode. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. We value your feedback. Don't forget to follow us on social media at elementrcm.ai.